And we're gonna get started right now.
Cool. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Being Marketers. We do this monthly webcast every month, first Thursday of the month. And our goal is to really talk to marketing leaders and explore both the being and then the marketing mind. And we always are thrilled to be able to collaborate in these discussions and to dig into the deep things that power us all. And we are really, really honored and excited today to have the guest who's with us. But we consider all of you our guests, so we welcome you in. I am Emily Sicorsi. I'm the co-founder of Root and River.
And I'm Justin Foster, co-founder, and we're in the same room together for the first time since I think February.
Yes, yes.
So, and our wonderful team. Go ahead, Jen and Kat.
Hi, I'm Jen Lawhead. I'm Chief of Story.
And I'm Kat Weiss. I'm the Chief of Staff at Root and River here.
So before we introduce our guests, we just wanted to give you a little heads up on how this works. So as we're going through and we're talking to our guest, if you have questions that come up, go ahead and type them into the chat. Jen and Kat are going to have an eye out for that, and they'll be our ambassadors. And if it makes sense to interrupt us for one of those questions, they're going to do so. So don't feel like you have to wait to the end or anything like that. Go ahead and put it in the chat. We welcome comments. If you're capturing quotes that you love, throw it in there. We like a really healthy chat section. And yeah, this is a conversation. It's a collaboration. And if you're curious about anything that we didn't ask, please just go ahead and jump in.
Yep.
All right. So without further ado, I feel like it's a little drum roll or something, right? So we're super thrilled to be welcoming John Hardesty to Being Marketers. I first met John a few years ago, maybe like 3 years ago, when it was time to meet the ex, because John and Justin had an agency together, and so years ago, and so then we partnered up and we began working together a few years later. So then Justin set up this dinner, and he was like all nervous because he really holds John in such high esteem, and it was just an immediate connection. And I could tell how much Justin really admired John, and I fell right in line with that. And his work is amazing. He spent 15 years being a real person inside of the fitness and bodybuilding industry, and really being an advocate and I'd say a trailblazer for humanity and marketing. And he's an inspiration to us today, and I definitely was part of the inspiration for starting Root and River. Mm-hmm. And so today we're going to dive in with him and look at all his successes, and he's going to share some wisdom with us. And we are just very, very honored to have you join us. So welcome, John.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've known John since 2001. As we just a little bit of, I promise those won't get into old home week here, but the first time I saw John was at an office in Meridian, Idaho. It was October, it was right after 9/11. It was like October of 2001, I think is when it happened. And he came in and he had his hat sideways, and he was just cool and buff and everything. And I was like, "You're wearing your hat wrong." And he just looked at me, and I've seen this look 100,000 times since then, which was basically like, "Whatever, dude." And that was that was our first conversation with me making fun of the way he was wearing his hat. So I've got to see John start his career. We were business partners in 2008. John, you had that huge opportunity, and just to watch your rise has been so inspiring. You've been one of my inspiration muses since I met you. I've seen him get married. I was got to be there for both the proposal and the wedding, and then I've got to see him become a dad. And it's just like Em said, it's a true honor to have you on, and it's exciting to be able to show the world how cool you are, because you're not going to brag on yourself. So I'll do it.
Well, yeah, thanks, Justin. I appreciate it, man. Good to be here. Obviously, I don't think this webcast is mushy marketers, but definitely have a lot of love for you as well, and for what you guys are building, and excited to talk today about, hopefully some stuff that people can take with them and action out, and hopefully keep pushing this idea of what true marketing is, and how to really connect with people on that deeper level. And yeah, I'm excited to dive in. So let's do it.
Do it. So one of the things, and there's a Q&A later on, y'all can go to the Root and River website and click on musings. You'll see a Q&A that John did prior to our conversation today. But one of the things that you shared in that was that you'd like everybody to know that branding is about the feeling, the sense, the connection. And that's so important. It's almost more important than the transaction. And so I wanted to put that out there right away and give you a chance to speak to that. And why is that the one thing that you think you'd like to reshape about branding?
Yeah, and I think it's because there's like this counter argument going on right now, which is not wrong, but performance marketing and measure everything by metrics. And I'm all for metrics. I like to see the results of, the spends that we're investing in, the tactics that we're doing, the team wins that we have, and being able to put that into a bucket that shows the value of what marketing is. But there's so much of that right now that I think people are looking at that before really thinking about just at its raw core. Marketing is about creating a connection to something that you feel you can represent, and that is connected to your brand personally, something you would wear, something you talk about, and what you think is cool at the end of the day. There's reasons why you're drawn into certain brands, and it's that feeling. And without that, the metrics, that if you don't think about that part first, the metrics either don't mean much or you're missing the whole point. And I think the metrics that I really think about that help that story are like stuff like lifetime value, referral rate, the word of mouth that comes with that, the social mentions, the organic like UGC that people do just because they're like had a cool experience with your brand or an unboxing experience. They're at a cool event that you put on that maybe you couldn't measure the direct attribution of that, in the first day. Maybe it happened over a period of time. Brands grow on you over time as well, and you become loyal to them over time. And I think there's just so much like focus right now on direct attribution, single transactions, things that happen right away because we want to see those results. And if you don't, then people change path, within a month or 2 or 3, and you're changing your strategy, which doesn't help you create that long lasting, connection to a brand. And I think that's where it comes from. Obviously my background is design. So visually, the things I wear, the things I like, have that appealing, like kind of visual aspect of it. And I think that's cool. So I'm drawn into brands like that, but that happens over time too. And it's not just because someone did one cool product. It's because they did a cool product, they had a cool marketing campaign, they had a cool experience, a cool event, their social looks awesome. People are talking about it. And that's what over time builds that connection for it. And it just can't happen in a day. And so I know there's a lot of pressure out there. And again, I'm not saying it's the wrong pressure. The questions that are asked around, is this marketing plan working? Is this spend going to return anything? Those are the right questions. But I think too often it becomes a really short life cycle or a short window of time that you measure that within. And that's where I think a lot of marketers right now feel the pressure. I think with new analytic tools that make it more easy for someone to access, whether something had a return on ad spend, I think these marketers, in general are feeling a lot of pressure. I know I've been guilty of it on both sides. And again, it's not that I don't understand, but I think there's a counter argument and a counter, part in my mind that wants to make sure people are educated on other metrics that can help balance out that initial short-term reaction from, a team of board members or your boss or, your agency partners that you're working with. So I think that's why it kind of like feels relevant today. Obviously, I know you guys care deeply about that sense of brand and community and that personal connection with people. But from someone that has to apply it to everyday life and justify budgets, and has for 15 years plus, that's the part that I want to make sure people are armed with to be able to create that same or that brand experience for their consumers as well.
Yeah. So John, we mentioned this in the intro. You just said it 15 years. So for 15 years, which is a long time doing anything, you've been, a marketing executive or branding and marketing executive in the fitness industry. In some form. What day-to-day or everyday task or project still gives you energy where you just like, oh yeah, I get to do this today? What kind of stuff gives you energy 15 years in?
Well, I think the space of fitness in general, like, serves a bigger purpose. Like, you get to watch people that you connect with, that if you present them with the right solution or the right product that meets their need, it's very life-changing. And so I think for me, when we talk about, especially in this role that I'm in today at VShred and also at Nutribulk, when I worked a lot with the C4 brand, it wasn't just one audience we were going after. There were multiple audiences that needed what we sold and needed the solutions that we were providing. And so as a marketer, to be able to think about how to get in front of the right audience at the right time and the right moment of need, and know that you have a solution for them on the back end. And it's not just a sale, but it's a solution to something that can really help impact their lives. I think that's kind of always been a really fun part of marketing plus fitness, the transformation aspect, which, you know, in the fitness world, transformation is very physical. You know, do you want abs? Do you not want abs? Do you want to be able to bench, squat, run? Those are very transformational from a physical standpoint, but that also helps you learn how to transform other areas of your life. And I know, Justin, you've gone through transformations as well, you know, and that's been something where you learn how to set goals, you learn how to be accountable, you learn new skills and new pieces of education that can unlock, you know, further potential. You learn how to like lean on a support, you know, community and people around you that are like-minded, that also have those same goals. And all those things can transfer over to your family, to your career, to your spiritual life. Like all those things connect. So for me, it's like this fitness aspect and getting someone into the funnel or into the brand. Like you can watch it ripple from there. And I think it's really cool, especially in fitness, where, you know, maybe the first day someone comes to you, like their first goal is like to walk around the block. And then, you know, eventually they're going on this path where 3 years later, they like look up and they're like a member of a CrossFit gym paying $250 a month. They're taking all these supplements. They're eating a keto diet. They're drinking bulletproof coffee. And like, they had no idea what like any of this was 3 years ago. And you can totally watch that over a period of time. So, you know, I think what's always fueled me is like the creativity, the messaging, and the connection to someone to get them to go from not starting to that first step, and then watching that whole journey and being a part of the journey over time. Because I think it's where the real value is. You know, I think on my bio, it says something about like, it's not just selling them a pill or a powder one time, but it's all the tools and all the support and all the things that you need to actually transform through the whole customer journey. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of products in there that do create transaction and do create revenue. But really, if you just think about the end goal being like, I'm going to get you from point A to point B, and I know your life's going to be better because of it. And that's going to be a good reflection on the company and the brand that helped you get there. Like, to me, that's the fun part of the intersection of marketing, branding, and fitness.
So John, you're bringing up some great themes of transformation and having more of a long-term relationship mindset and nurturing. And I love and totally in alignment with all of those ideas, but I'm wondering, as a leader, how do you both keep everyone focused on the long term? And sometimes you gotta pump the brakes a little bit, or you gotta like bring everybody like kind of there is the temptation to like the immediate thing and like, can we just do this quickly and not think long term? So as a leader, how do you keep everyone kind of both patient enough and like eager enough? What's the balance that you strike there in maintaining that?
Yeah, I think as a marketing leader, you essentially have two roles. I think one role is to protect your team from being spread in a chaotic fashion. You know, so you're going to get a lot of requests from, you know, people above you, people that are peers to you that have new ideas. And look, I've worked for some amazing CEOs that are super ambitious. It makes them good at what they're doing. They see the opportunities, they see all the shiny objects, and some of those are really big opportunities. It's made them who they are today. So as a leader, your goal is to listen to all those ideas, think about them in a 360 manner to see if it is something that's meaty enough to change path, to make those big decisions, to adjust your team structure. And things will always pop up. There's always outliers that are things that you just have to tackle. But to become that barrier and almost that filter for the rest of their team, so the team can stay focused on the overall objective and the bigger long-term goal. And to not divert them too much, because I think that can cause, and you know, I've seen it both ways, but definitely can cause a lot of confusion, a lack of clarity, lost hours, and I think just burnout. You know, overall, if you switch strategies and you switch directions and campaigns too often, you know, notwithstanding even the fact that it can confuse your customers, and you're trying to get them to latch on to your purpose and your mission and your design and your visual, so they recognize what you're doing and can repeat it to their audience and their fans and their community as well. But just from a team perspective, like it creates a lot of stress when you constantly pivot, you constantly change, and you don't stay dedicated to kind of that long-term vision. So I think that's kind of the two roles that you play. You know, try to keep your team going one way, and divert the other people and help them walk through why we shouldn't change paths so often.
Yeah, that's great. So there's a term in fitness and weightlifting of fail, going to fail. So the question here for you, John, is you don't have to share what your biggest fail is as a marketing leader. You don't have to share what it was, but we would love to hear what you learned from it. So when you've hit those fail points using the same kind of concept of fail, like that you in powerlifting in particular, what's something you learned, or what are a few things you learned from hitting some of those fail points as a brander?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question for sure. Yeah, I think if I think about some of my bigger fails, I think it's not pushing enough on the importance of the brand through all aspects of really your business. So I think about, from a hiring perspective, not hiring people that really do care about your passion, of your mission, and are passionate about what you're working on. I think you can quickly want to hire really quickly, especially, I've been a part of a lot of team build outs, in places like Austin, Texas, or even like in Boise, to where you kind of get a blank canvas. You have a big ask to go after, and you get to start hiring. And if you don't hire, it's all on you for that time being. So you can quickly, this is a great resume. They've done some cool things, but it's just a job to them. And I think you can sacrifice on some of those aspects in order to move quickly. So there's that balance between speed and then like your long-term kind of build up of a culture that is really going to last for a long time. So I've learned that over time, and I think that's been something that I would, I try to do differently now, and make sure that that's embraced all the way through. I think also just really fighting, for those brand experiences that I think are a deeper connection, and having the data to back it up. And so I think, in some cases I've been really successful in that way, and other times, I think I can just fall on the fact that, well, no, everyone knows that, like, when a brand does this cool thing, like, they build more fans. But when you can't measure that, and you go to compete against other marketing tactics that can be measured on like a return of ad spend or a direct ROI, and you're coming in with more fluffy kind of feel good brand stuff without the metrics dialed in. And look, some of the brand metrics that, whether it's awareness or your NPS score or consumer satisfaction, like some of that can be a little bit harder to measure in short terms, or you need to run, a big, long research project that can take 12 weeks and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, to really have the answer that you want to provide, that this is working or not working. But there's ways to get there. And I think I've probably, through my failures, have learned the importance of being able to model out that's why I talked about the LTV, the lifetime value of a customer, how much they're purchasing per year, what happens when they're engaged versus not engaged, and how does it impact the sales funnel? What's the referral percentage that you can get if they have a great experience? And then laddering up all those brand initiatives and brand marketing initiatives up to that metric to be able to show the value from a revenue perspective to the stakeholders that are also making those decisions. So I think that I don't say lack of data, but that I think I would prioritize that higher moving forward as a key lesson I've learned over time.
We were talking earlier about what gives you energy. So I want to pose the question of, like, has there been a time where you found yourself with a lack of energy? Hard to imagine because you're such an energetic guy, but a lack of energy. And were you able to discern where the drain was? And then how did you address it? Because I think that's something a lot of chief branding officers like you, or chief marketing officers, directors of marketing, people that work in the space, they do get burnt out, as you've already mentioned. So a time where maybe that happened, and how did you detect it out?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think one on the team side, and then one on more just the project side. So like from a team perspective, I think my energy levels are definitely, and COVID's a great example of ways that we've had to be really creative and unique in thinking about how to keep that energy level. Like, I feed off people's energy. Like, I like to work side by side. I like to roll up my sleeves. Like, I like to have that feeling of seeing someone that's a trench buddy, which is a term that I use a ton with my teams. Those people that know they're ride or die. They're going to be with you through the hard times. If you need to throw a late night, they're going to be right there cranking out, work with you over loud music. Like, that energy that goes, that comes with having like a really strong team of passionate people that have each other's backs. So times where I've lacked that energy is where either I didn't have that culture established yet. So like early on in team build outs, if I made a few mishires, had some of the wrong people in the wrong seats, or didn't have enough people with the right passion for the mission that we were working on, where it just felt like that was a job to them. That's where my energy, I think, has been wavered before, where if you feel like you're the only one that cares that deeply and that passionately about what you're working on, you can start to feel, lonely in that pursuit, and that can wear on you. And then I think the other one is the project side. So when you feel like you're just doing a product for the sake of selling something, I think that can become wearing and taxing. And so constantly trying to remind myself how it fits into the bigger puzzle and remind yourself of the bigger mission that you're going after. Because you can usually find a way where even if it's transactional in some areas of the business, that you can map out how that actually impacts the customer journey that serves the bigger mission. So for me, who's a very purpose-driven, type marketer, to constantly be able to remind yourself of how it fits in the overall picture and not get so locked into that specific initiative or that transaction as the only thing that's important, but make sure you step away from it too to see the bigger picture. I think is something where that also helps me, keep my energy at a high level.
So it would be amiss not to tell at least one John story about, but it's about your passion. It's about your work ethic and that ride or die. This is probably around 2005, and we were working as a team. John and I were part of an ownership team of an agency that was doing some pretty revolutionary things at the time. Anyway, we had a major client meeting, and we were part of the sharing. What we were going to share with them is the design, the logo concepts, and the look. And at the night before the meeting, it wasn't done yet, and John's like, "I got it," and we're like, "All right." And then we get to the office the next day, and the meeting's at 9, and it's 8:50, and he's not there yet. We have nothing. And all of a sudden, coming out from behind this wall is John, a little less put together visually than he usually is. And he has his stuff, and he printed them out, and he had stayed up all night and had stopped and found a spot in the corner of this unconstructed office to sleep for a couple hours so that he'd get it done and deliver it. And I just remember thinking, damn, there's no way I'll ever be able to, I won't do it. I would have used my creativity to come up with a good excuse why I didn't get it done. So I think that's why I love Im's question there too, John, because I've seen that passion for getting the work done right. My favorite Johnism is good design is not a matter of opinion. That was another part of knowing what you believe in and building off of your convictions.
Yes, he cites that a lot.
I do, especially the clients that have opinions about design.
It comes in handy. So thank you.
So
and that's just, that's fueled because look, I went to school for graphic design, and it was a path that I think, some people in probably my family and others were like, you're never gonna make money, doing graphic design. Why, you should go be an engineer, go be an architect, do something where you can actually make something of yourself. And so I think, I've always had this chip on my shoulder of proving out that even if I haven't done it before or haven't been in that situation before, I'm willing to put the work in. And especially when I'm passionate about something, I've always said that chip. I was a skinny kid in high school, got cut from sports teams because I was too small. No one taught me how to go. And that's my fitness background too. No one taught me how to lift weights or eat the right way, because I would have done it. I would have gained 50 pounds like Bryson DeChambeau, the golfer, over a summer, and came back and, made the team, because that's just my mindset. But I had enough of those things happen where, I believe that even if I've never done it before, I can learn it at a quick pace. I'll outwork everyone I can. And I love building teams like that. I love building teams that are hungry, that are going to be thrown into new situations. And whether it's COVID or the digital transformation or changes in social media, stuff just changes now. And you have to find people that are willing to self-learn, new skills, that are hungry and ambitious, that yes, the center of it is the passion for the mission, but they have to be adaptable. You have to be resilient, and finding people that have that same work ethic, that no matter what it takes, we're going to be there next to you, and we're going to crank it out too, because we all want to benefit, the business, but also our own personal careers and our own personal skill sets to do so. I love finding team members that want to be in that position. In most cases, my proudest moments haven't been this big project launch that we did or a successful ROI on a marketing campaign. It's been team members that all I did was simply show them what the company needed, the value for the company, the passion for the mission, open the door. And these team members that had those inherent skills of like outworking people, that were self-learners, that were passionate about what they're doing, like just walked right through and like laddered up their career from just like being able to see, that perspective of like, man, here's where the company's going. If you put yourself in this same position, knowing what I know about you, like you're going to kill it. And I'm being able to unlock that potential. Like, as just a leader in general, not just for marketing, I think has been kind of what keeps that energy going too. I love like, getting texts from like old colleagues and old team members, to this day from either at bodybuilding.com or at Nutrabolt, they're just updating me on where they're at, what they're working on. Like, I mean, that's a great sense of pride for me. And so that's, probably another place where I get my energy from is just like knowing that like there's a system, there's a process, the things that I've done with people, as so far proved out to be, a great point of, I guess, legacy and pride for me.
Yeah. So technical question, and then after this, we'll pause and see if there's any questions that have come in chat. So do you have like a go-to interview question or like an interview process or get to know you, a prospective employee, team member, anything that you go to in your bag of tricks to see if like that person has that fire, has that determination? What can you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think just because it's a fitness space, I like to know someone's journey around like why a fitness company. And, it's always been interesting at bodybuilding.com. Like we didn't want to just hire bodybuilders. Like not everyone was walking around wearing posing suits with like Jantan oil spread all everywhere, flexing in the corner. I mean, I was, of course.
Of course, right, yeah.
But, like, I think I've always had to like fight that perception from any fitness company. Like, no, you don't have to have abs to work here. But like, I do want to know like why you are passionate about like helping people see and understand how to live a better, healthier life. Like, what's that connection? And you're looking for those stories about whether it's their personal journey, or they had a family member that went through something, or they just had a kid and they realized that they need to live for their, be healthier for their kid. Like whatever those stories are, like I love to see there's a connection there. So in the fitness realm, that's what I usually like kind of go towards is like, tell me about any experiences in that way. Cause I'm trying to find that passion point in fitness or just for your health and wellness. And then from a branding perspective, I mean, I love like the basic questions around like, tell me what brands you like are drawn to, what brands like you're obsessed with and like why. Like walk me through like why you're a fan of a certain car brand or a watch brand or a clothing line or a content platform. Like why do you tune in every day and walk me through that, because I think it helps unpack like what touch points they're thinking about, what marketing aspects they're thinking about through that journey and what they appreciate. I mean, from everything I look at, every brand I love about, like it's everything from the quality of their photography to like their product designs, like the textures they put behind their design, like the experiences they put on, like the unboxing experience, the little things that like a Nike will do, like on their custom shoes. And it's just, there's little things here and there where if you're a real student of brands, like those little things like really matter to you. Versus other people that might be totally oblivious to like why they wear what shoes they wear, why they put on the color shirt they do. They just don't know until, maybe they understand that. But brand marketers should really like have like these really deep convictions about things they love that they talk about all the time. They know exactly why, and they can list them out for you. So I think I kind of like look for those two aspects of it. And I want someone to go off. I want someone to talk about, if it's Apple, which is the generic answer for everyone, like tell me exactly why, like, and go through like, whether it's the presentations they put on stage, towards the type of material they use for their computer, like whatever it is, the speeds and feeds, like you should be nerdy about it in some way. And if you can't, then how are you going to be that same way for our brand? When it comes down to that moment.
Yeah, it's a great point. We always say like the emotion has to live in you first before it lives in the brand. So yeah, absolutely. Love what you said there. Jen and Kat, I'm going to pause for any questions that have come up for either one of you or anybody listening in.
See any in the chat, but I had one that just came to me, John. What brand can you share any brands with us that you feel passionate about or you feel nerdy about that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to sound like I'm an image whore, vanity whore, or anything, but like I like nice things, and I was thinking about the other night, like I like nice things, but not because they're expensive, and I don't mean really expensive stuff, but like I like it because most of the things I like have this idea that they design and they're long-lasting designs, like they're classic designs. So like Rolex, Porsche, like, and I don't own a Porsche, but Porsche, like some of these brands that have been around forever and their car looks the same way it did, in 1960 as it pretty much does today. The watches that are timeless, like there's these items that no matter what I buy today, like I can pass it to my son in 50 years and like it's gonna have more value than it does today because they spent the time up front to really think about, the legacy behind that. And they build their brand around that idea of heritage and legacy. And they could be just starting today, but they're still talking in that way. So Porsche does a great job with talking about, their past, but they also talk about their move to electronic cars and what the future looks like. So they're talking 50 years out, and they're also talking 50 years back, but they all connect together. And I love brands that are able to tell that story. And I love the idea, even with the company I work for now is VShred, it's been around for 4.5 years. But to start to talk about not just the last 4.5 years, but talk about 50 years out, like the bigger mission, and already talk like you're going to be there. And you already know you're going to be there. So what are we doing that makes that legacy and lasting impact? Like those are the brands that I'm really drawn into. And so, yeah, that's what I say there. Yeah.
All right, I see one in the chat. It says coaching executives against their quick impulses against immediate ROI. Great talking points, but in practice, can you give examples of how to get them on board with a crawl, walk, run approach? From Z.
So about how to get the ROI. Sorry,
yes, it says, yeah, sure. Let's see. But in practice, can you give examples of how to get them on board with a crawl, walk, run approach?
Like how do you essentially, John, what tactics do you use to get them to agree to your strategy instead of their impulse?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think the first part is making sure that you're establishing the right metrics and you have the baseline for those metrics. So if I really want to have longer lasting brand campaigns, let's say that don't have a direct, let's say like 7-day attribution window attached to it, making sure you have the baseline on stuff like your AOV, your lifetime value, your frequency of purchases, and your referral rate. So if you can establish those baselines there. And I think sometimes it's a matter of also presenting the case of like, here's our current model. Here's what we have from a consumer acquisition perspective. Here's how much we spend. Here's how much we make. And then if you have those baselines of LTV, AOV, and referral, and they're not probably great if you're not thinking about it that way, you can start showing the model with and without. And so if we do these brand activities and we can increase the LTV when they buy one more time per year, and that increases it by $100 for that consumer, what does that do to our overall portfolio and our overall revenue structure of the company? So kind of build out some case models that show them like slight tweaks, just like slight tweaks on conversion on that, on your ad spend can make a big impact. But we all know, well, I think most people know that it's more expensive to get a new consumer than it is to help, an old or existing consumer buy more. But really that lifetime value metric and, and we have great case studies like at bottom.com, we knew that if someone was engaged in the content and community part of our website versus just the e-commerce platform, they were buying 4.5 times per year. Now, if they just went direct nav to the store and didn't go to any content, didn't engage in any community aspects, they're only buying 1.2 times per year. So with an AOV of $75 per year, and someone's only buying 1.2 times versus 4.5, you can start to back in how you can start testing those things out. And so I think the best crawl, walk, run is being able to do an iteration or a test to where you're and size of budget doesn't really matter. But say, I want to do this one activity and we're going to measure LTV for this audience group. But you need more than like 7 days. So looking at LTV over the next, let's say 90 days, or if your product life cycle is 45 days, like a supplement, let's say, making sure you're measuring it past that 45-day window to see if they're buying more often and creating a bigger, basket size for them. But I think it all comes down to making sure that the team you are speaking to understands the metrics of lifetime value and that referral percentage and the impact it could make to their model. And if you can get that sold in first, and then you just figure out the tactics that you want to start with, and there might be some real low-hanging fruit in your organization where there's a bad customer experience, or there's no follow-up email, there's no referral program, the loyalty program's not there. You can kind of figure out, which one to start with. But that's kind of where I would go from like a crawl, walk, run.
It's great. I would add just my commentary on this, John, to that, to Z's question that you need to, as a marketing leader, you need to make sure you always keep a seat at the strategy table. As soon as you start being delegated to, where you're the implementer of someone else's shitty ideas, then you, no matter what your title is, you have to work your way up to having that political juice to be able to say no. And a lot of that comes from building thought leadership. It's not just from performance, and performance is important and all that, but it's also the ability to say that to build your personal brand as a marketing leader, so that you bring that juice to the table, so that you have that credibility to counter what the executive that maybe be less knowledgeable has. That's not a one-time thing. That's something you do on a daily basis. So
I think there's also,
go
I
ahead.
think that's a great one too, and I think it's the education that it takes, throughout your whole organization on the importance of that brand and what it can mean from not only just a culture. And you can go, and then you guys know, you can go as nitty gritty as like, what's the retention of our employee base if the brand and the culture is good, right? But for the lower hanging fruit is, what's it going to look like? How does brand impact revenue and sales and all the things we talked about, and return rate and all that stuff. But I think the other great way from like a crawl, walk, run perspective is also deconstruct the brands that everyone's talking about in your organization. Everyone wants to be, whether it's a Nike or a Peloton or, whatever vertical you're in, there's brands they aspire to become. There's new up and comer brands that they're worried about. So when you help deconstruct like why they're successful, what they're doing, are they doing a bunch of influencer marketing? Are they doing content marketing? Are they doing experiential marketing? And if those are things you're not doing today, why are they doing them? And why are they growing so fast? There's some connection there, is that if you can help deconstruct those brands that everyone's talking about and lay out their plan. And sometimes it's like even I've called companies that we are trying to model after, and sometimes they'll just give you their playbook. Like a Gymshark is a great apparel brand. It's, I think they're now valued at $1.5 billion in the UK. They've been doing influencer marketing for 13 years, but we had a few employees in Nutribullet that would just call up their team. They're like this, or their former athletes, and they're influencers, and they would lay out their exact playbook for you. So you can start doing some of that research on brands that you aspire to become, or competitors that are doing some interesting things. And sometimes that can be the trigger to help to get your leadership team to say like, oh, if they're doing it, we should do it. Show us how we should do that. And that kind of gives you permission to go do, things that might be more brand facing.
Cool. I think there's also an element of all of this in the advocating and being that coach, coaching up the executives and educating them of pushing back against their common fears, because they're looking at it from like a, dollars and cents standpoint. And then sometimes when you're bringing new ideas, a director of brand or marketing, they're like, ooh, that sounds risky. We're afraid. And we've had this happen all the time with clients. And then the fear begins to dictate what we're not going to do. And so, so I'm just curious, have you ever been in a position where like fear was either coming up or down? And then how did you manage that fear and turn it around? And where did you go to do that?
Yeah. And I think on that point too, like, I think the job of a marketer is also not just to be a marketer. Like your job is to be a 360 business thinker. Like you should be involved and learn as much as you can about operations, about inventory, about the state of the business, about the trends happening in the category, not just in the marketing lens, but like what's happening in the space. I know there's a lot of brands that have gone through COVID where it's like they completely like changed or ruined, their vertical or their category. And so to come in at that point and be like, oh, we need to do brand marketing, or we need to do this experience, like it's not being, realistic. And it's not being your job as a marketer is create solutions that help the business grow or help meet your customers and help partner with your leadership team to bring new thinking and creative solutions to the board. And so I think there's been multiple times too, where I've had to adjust plans where maybe we weren't spending money in the marketing realm like I probably would have, but I knew the circumstances of like the changes in the business where if we had $1 and revenue was important for that month, we have to go transactional because it is short term, and everyone understood it was short term, but we can't then start fighting for the long-term brand LTV because we need to make the next 30 days work, or the next 60 days, the next quarter work. So I think not coming in naive to like the surroundings of what you're dealing with is also the job of a marketing leader. And also to educate your team on that, exposing your team to the financial data, to the current environment of the industry that you're in, the issues that are going on with the company, so that you don't have people below you also be like, what about this idea? And you're like, oh man, if you said that to the wrong person right now, like you're going to look like you have no context and you might lose your job. So it's your job to also make sure everyone has that transparency to bring the right ideas to the table at the right time. That being said, there's also, I think a ton of opportunity. And, and even transactional marketing to also accomplish what you want to do. So if you are spending money, let's say, and you go down just, Amazon ads, making sure that you're making them represent your brand in the best way possible, even though they are transactional, the landing pages, the quality of the ad, what you're saying on the ad is still a touch point for brand. And so being a part of those conversations, those discussions, I don't think it's just black as white. It's like, we do this, you do that, and our way is better. Like, you got to find all those ways, the way you talk to retailers, if you aren't spending any marketing money, you still have partners and your, distribution partners. So we did a lot of cool things at Nutrabolt where it's like, flying out and talking to the sales team that's out there selling your beverage on the street. And whether you're just giving them the rah pitch or telling them why they should be passionate about your company, and then they go out and advocate for your brand about the mission you're trying to go after, that's marketing as well. And that doesn't cost that much money to fly out and educate a team that's touching every consumer and every retailer out there. But yeah, there's been many cases where I've tried to educate up or educate down, and sometimes successfully and sometimes not. And look, sometimes being a good marketer and a good leader at a company is also realizing that your job is to execute on the vision that was set by someone else.
Mhm.
If you didn't want to be that, you'd go start your own company, and do your own thing. But you chose to go follow someone that has a very clear and articulate vision and mission, and your job is to bring that to life. And your job is to trust and embrace their feedback because they're the one that got it to where it's at today. Yes, you want to be a partner and a peer-to-peer, but at the end of the day, you want to help them bring their vision and the company vision to life. And, I think that's something that I've always, made sure that I took very seriously. The people I work for, the jobs I sign up for, the leaders that I follow and work with, like, I came to work for them and I came to help them bring that vision to life. And when they interviewed me and they told me what they're building, what they're working on, part of my checklist is like, can I help bring that to life? Can I help make that better? Is that something that excites me? Is this person going to bring up new ideas that are going to push us even farther than I maybe wasn't going to do before? And the answer is yes. Then, like, I'm all in, and I just got to help work with that person to bring as many good ideas to the table. And I think in most cases that could be 9 out of 10 ideas I might bring or thinking that I bring might be, nope, we're not going to do it. We've tried that before, or I don't agree with that, or we can't do it right now. But then 1 out of 10, maybe you get that win, and that's the role.
So as we get close to an ending here, John, I want to kind of switch perspectives or angles on something. And so one of our mantras is now in this year that we've had, this hell of a year that we've had as a society, as a planet even, is social pressure is now market pressure, and is one of our sayings or mantras. So as a marketing leader that's especially dealing with like consumer facing products, even if there's a channel, but there's ultimately is a consumer of said product. What counsel do you give to other marketing leaders or to people or to like a CEO about how to navigate attaching, how to respond to social pressure? I think of Black Lives Matter and the way that I find it. I mean, you and I have talked about this over the years. How set in their ways the NFL was, and they were. And and all of a sudden within one season they switched, and I kind of doubt their sincerity, but I don't doubt their execution. And the NBA has gone all in as well with social justice. So how do you help a CEO navigate where social justice or making a social stance fits into the overall brand so it's sincere? And so it's sincere.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part for sure. And I've had great conversations with, Dos Cunningham, the CEO of Nutrabolt, about that approach and, the opportunities that exist. And, I think it always came down to if you're going to take that path, it has to be authentic, but you also can't just pick one lane that's relevant at that time. Like, you're either inclusive or you're exclusive, and you can't just choose to be one towards one initiative. Like, if you're going to be relevant and modern, like, how do you make sure to support all the things that your customers or your employees care about? Because otherwise you're almost alienating all the other groups. So Black Lives Matter is a great example, but are they going to switch that up now? And this becomes part of their platforms that they care about the relevant issues that are going on, and it rotates through seasons and themes. And I'm not saying that's not the most important one, but there's a lot of, whether it's cancer research or diabetes or, the LGBT community, like, there's a lot of social causes you can be a part of. So I think it starts with being authentic. Some companies have it built in their founding story. It's why they started the company they work for, and they can go in all in. That's easy. And there's other companies that don't do any of that, but they're like, oh, this is a marketing opportunity. We can make a lot of noise and create a lot of revenue from that. And that's probably not the right strategy either. So it's how to help actually figure out either what your employees or what your customers like really care about. So we've done a lot of like studies and surveys with our consumers about what they care about. I mean, if you're a good social listener in general about what your community is talking about, and what attaches to your brand, I think that's the starting point. And you bring up that data. A lot of our customers, live in these areas or struggle with these issues, care about these things, are also posting about this kind of content, and they're like us. So if they're like us, how can we embrace that, but do it in an authentic way? It's not just a short-term campaign with a promo sale attached to it. If you're going to go in, it's not a one-time event or occurrence. It's got to be part of your DNA. So, the big thing that we were talking about at NutriBullet was always, and I think this is true of a lot of consumer goods, is, being eco-friendly within your packaging, your approach. But if you're going to have an eco-friendly package, and your company is still burning tons of paper, and wasting paper inside the company, and your freight routes are really screwed up, so you're spending way more gasoline, and you could be more efficient. Like, they all got to connect together. So you can't just have a marketing campaign separate from, your HR plan that's also attaching the same issues and helping address the same social cause. Because you're right, it'll be exposed as, fraud and, inauthentic. And I think that can almost do even more of a disservice, especially for the marketer that brings it up.
Right.
If you're, hey, it's October, we should do, a breast cancer awareness. September?
October.
Oh, October. Got it right. And you just decide to do a pink campaign with a ribbon on there, for a short term, and maybe you create a few more sales, but all the feedback that comes in is negative and you lose a bunch of consumers. Like, you're not doing yourself any favors by recommending that you attach yourself to some of these, social causes just for the sake of, thinking that you're building the right marketing calendar that's relevant.
Right. Yeah.
I have a question about you. We've talked about COVID, referenced this time period a couple different times. So I'm wondering if there was anything that you thought at the beginning of the pandemic and lockdown and everything that maybe about the market, about the world, that turned out to not be true these months later, or vice versa. Something that you were like, this is going to happen, and then it was dead on. Yeah.
I mean, I think just in the fitness industry, it's been really interesting. So, I know with all, the gyms being shut down, I think there was an easy idea that people would just say, well, the gyms are closed, so I'm going to stop working out. And I get a free pass. It's this idea that people were looking for that out, like, going to the gym sucks. I hate going to the gym. Thank God it's closed. I don't have to go for a while now. And they would stop working out. And I think it's been really interesting to watch the at-home trend and the ingestion of like app content and Pelotons and all the at-home workout equipment that was sold out. You could buy, I think the first couple of weeks during COVID, like, it was like to buy like a set of dumbbells was like $500 on eBay. Like, everyone was like, they were just in high demand. And I think that was really interesting to see that people were, so invested in like, self-development and still focused on that, and actually grew during that time period. So people actually took this break to really work on themselves a little bit, probably in more ways than one, whether it's from a family standpoint, to a balance of life standpoint, to their physical appearance or health standpoint. I think that was really interesting, because I think it would have been really easy to see people just like check out, from any of that stuff and kind of take a vacation from improvement. So that was really, I think, cool to see. Interesting to watch the trends in e-commerce, grow as well. I think that was another one where a lot of these, especially in the supplement world and sports nutrition world, these are not essential items in most cases that, if people were worried about, their job or financially worried, that these brands would all go down quite a bit. But to see like some of the e-commerce businesses that ship to your house actually increase over time, even on goods that were maybe, considered, nice to haves, I think was really interesting as well. So that kind of, I think, switched my thinking a little bit about what people care about, what they invest in, and where they go to shop.
Yeah. I was proactive. I gained my COVID way before the pandemic, and then I worked it off. So I didn't go that, I did it before, and then I used COVID to like, hey, so anyway, I had some time. Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, John, because well, it's my job. We'd like you to ask us a question. Like what would you like to ask us? We're branding experts. You're newly on. You're extremely knowledgeable and talented. But
Yep.
this is the chance for because you can learn a lot about a person by the questions they ask. So we'd love to have you ask us a question as we start to wrap up here.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a marketing perspective and just a leader perspective, you guys deal with a lot of business owners and businesses that come to you, obviously looking for the secret sauce to marketing or a change in marketing plan. Something's obviously not working. So I'd be curious, from your perspective as working with business owners and CEOs, like what is the number one concern or thing that they come to you that they can't solve on their own? That they really struggle with from a marketing perspective. And I've had, especially during, the onboarding process of finding a new career path up here in Boise, I've talked to a lot of CEOs. So I'm just curious to hear, I think it's common knowledge that, the average tenure of a CMO is like 18 months, because they like to change path and change strategy. I know it's one of the biggest concerns and things that CEOs think about is their marketing plan and strategy and budget working? But maybe from your perspective, what do you hear the most often these days? Like what are people thinking about at that level?
I think the thing, I was just talking to a CEO about this last night, is when people find us, they're at this moment that I find just so juicy and awesome, where they have lived this brand very truly and internally, and they've had conviction and it's worked, and the culture shows that, and the audience they've built shows that. But nobody knows about them. They've never told their story. They've never found a language. And so what they're come to us with that dilemma and this other beautiful ingredient that's like this desire, like it's time. Like it is time, because their goal, our defiers as we call them, their goal is to shift the industry that they're in or shift the world, either one. And they are like, they're like, now's the time. And I found that so resonant prior to COVID, but particularly in the state of the world where we are right now, I think we're seeing a rising of that to an even greater level. As you said, people have been working on themselves and doing a lot of introspection. So now that they're here and they're like, the time is now to shift, to do this, to build a new model, to say the thing that I really want to say, or to find those words that have eluded me. So that would be it for me.
Yeah. I think, John, when we attract what we call high conscious or high awareness entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, and there's an underlying frustration in that they can't, not only do they not know the language, they can't get their team to get on the same page related to telling the story. They don't know how to transfer that. So they think it's a hiring problem. I need to hire different people that are more passionate. And what we think the antidote to it is getting into developing a root system so that your brand can withstand massive shifts and changes. And the root system will do that for you, but they don't necessarily know that. So it's this frustration. And I think related to that, especially with higher conscious or higher awareness CEOs, is a complete intolerance for bullshit. Like across the board, they don't want to come across as pretentious. They don't want to use ClickFunnels because everybody else is, or whatever. There's this impatient rebelliousness to go actually do something agitating in the world. And the irony is, with a lot of these CEOs we talk to, is they can't get team members to feel the same way because they're so programmed to do the work. I did the work. I don't want to be rebellious. I just want to get paid. That type of thing. I think those frustrations are most common with higher conscious or higher awareness CEOs.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, I've loved the culture here at VShred. I'm 4 weeks in, but it's very much speaks to your point about, this break the norm, and I think, the term of removing corporate slog, like not hearing those BS bingo words that a marketer should use or a company should use. I think I've gotten a total of maybe 10 emails since I started. Everything's done through Slack. Everything's done through Zoom calls. Meetings are like a cuss word, for sure. And, I think there's a balance in there, but it's been kind of this, we're going to do this our way. We have a very, convicted belief about like, moving fast, and what got us here today is going to get us there tomorrow. And anything that doesn't fit that, is very, I think looked down upon. So I think it's been in line with what you talked about. It's been cool.
Yeah.
So I'll pause and just let you guys know who you're watching. Now's a chance for last minute questions. Go ahead and throw them in chat. We'd love for you to ask John while we have him for a few more minutes. While they're doing that, John, I know I see the sign behind your head. I want it all. Yeah, that's so awesome. An early mantra of mine, all of the things. But you're recently had your second son. You have 2 small children. You've had a lot of change your position recently. So, life and parenthood, being a father, being a husband, being a high achiever. How do you what is your spinning plate methodology, or how do you step outside of the achiever to be in the moment, or I don't know, just anything around that?
Yeah, I mean, probably not well yet. I think it's COVID was definitely interesting. I think we moved back to Boise from Texas. We had a second kid, changed jobs. I mean, it was a very eventful COVID season in addition to just COVID stuff. But I think it's something I think as I get older and go through more adversity and have more, I guess, resilience or just more understanding of the way the process of kind of life typically works, which is always different. I think I've just learned that the achiever is like small steps sometimes. And the achiever is still having the vision and knowing what it's going to feel like when you get there, but being okay if you're not maybe taking that step in one area, but other ones are moving. So just it's being more comfortable, I think, with the journey, and not knowing it's not going to happen overnight. I definitely am someone that, when I get a wild hair, which is probably 4 nights a week, where I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning, just working on stuff because I'm passionate about it and thinking about it, which does get harder when you get older and have a kid that wakes up at 6 a.m. But I'm just more comfortable with knowing it's a process, I think. And I, as much of a fitness buff as I am, when we had our second kid, I didn't go to the gym for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And it shocks everyone probably, but it's like I just realized that wasn't what it was about during that time period. So, I luckily, done that for 20 years. So taking off 3 months to go be with your kid and help, my wife at home, that was although it's hard to let go of, that you can't do that and do this and do that, but it was just, I was okay with it. I had a piece of that, I think, as I mature. And there's only so many hours in the day. I mean, you just got to do the best you can with all of it and try to make the right decisions. But it's just at the end of the day, you can't do it all.
You got to be gentle, in those moments, like you're saying. It's okay to take 3 months off, for sure. I think we had a question come in. Kat, you see that one? Or
Yeah, I see it. It's you've been a marketing exec for over 15 years. What's one thing you wish you could tell John from 15 years ago?
I know what I wish I would have told. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, what's one thing I would have told John? I think I probably didn't have the right knowledge around the team aspect. And I think I would have, obviously 15 years ago, I think you tend to jump at any opportunity you can. I was lucky to fall in companies that had a purpose-driven mission, that had really passionate CEOs. So I got lucky there for sure. I wouldn't change anything. We took, obviously, as Justin knows, we took some risks. We learned quickly by diving in and doing stuff that wasn't taught to me in school. So I wouldn't tell myself not to do that, but I think I probably thought back then I could do it all on my own. Mm-hmm. And I probably still fight some of that mentality in my head of I'll just do it myself and I'll just stay up till 4 a.m. to get it done.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough over the past, really 10 years, with my last stint at Bottom.com, Nutrabolt, what we're building here today at VShred is like that, building a really solid team, and I think, there's that quote of, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And that mentality, I think, is something that I probably didn't know back then and really embrace today much more. So surround yourself with good team members, that's probably what I give myself for that advice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, so
bring it back.
Yes, a great landing spot here. As we close, so this is going to be recorded this has been recorded. If you are a member of Being Marketers, which is a free community of humanistic marketers, you will get the full recording. So just sign up if you're not a member of that. And then our next Being Marketers webcast is on Thursday, November 5th. And this one, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, Thursday, November 5th. And we're bringing back a friend of ours, Misty Mejia, and we're going to be working on planning your brand, but in a very radical way. So if you go to roodriver.com and click on Being Marketers, you'll see today the description of what we're going to be covering of this, what we're calling inquiry-based planning. And so that's just a little pitch for that. John, you're awesome. This was fun. Thanks for the energy. Thanks for all the energy and all the insight that you brought to the table. You were extremely eloquent and helpful today. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate it. Good to see your faces again.
Yes,
Good to see you
yeah,
too.
hopefully in person at some point.
Yeah.
Sure.
My friend.
Take
Thank
care.
you all. Thank you, Kat.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Jen. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.